So you just need to know, okay, is this the time for us to change? What is the reason for changing? Does this still represent our brand? And give it a lot of time for it to come, for the audience to accept it.
All right.
Mistakes, inconsistency, and this follows through to what I just mentioned. You have to try to stay consistent. I know it's hard, but just try. Avoid conflicting messages or visuals that doesn't matches your brand, so that you don't confuse your audience tomorrow. You can't start talking about productivity when you are not even being productive yourself. So you have to avoid inconsistency. You have to avoid the lack of authenticity. That means you have to be genuine, because that genuinity is what will carry you to the end. Because if you try to start building your brand on the lie, you're going to get caught. Because if, for example, you get interviewed by 2 or 3 different people, a time will come where you might even forget that your lie that you said. And by the time people start looking at your story, they realize that this story is not consistent with this other one. So you have to avoid being inauthentic.
Now, I'm imagining that there is a business out there who maybe have got it to the point that they want to switch gear, they want to maybe change, and therefore by changing, meaning also changing their branding. And so where I'm actually going there is, are there some situation that tells you that it is time for you to change your branding? This might affect maybe the color, your message, how you position yourself in the world, of course, or the component of branding. Which are usually these conditions, and when it happens, which is the best way to do it, so that there are no fallout to your business?
There are sometimes that branding might not be necessary, and there are sometimes that branding might be necessary. But let's say you want to pivot into doing something else. I also need to say that, like I mentioned earlier, personal branding is different from a business branding. For a personal brand, if you're trying to pivot, then your funds and all of those things belong to you. There might not be a need except necessary. And for personal brand, for moving or for you to change your brand identity, what is really needed the most is your brand story, rather than text or fonts, because it's not a business brand. But if it's a business brand, then things that you might be looking at are maybe the decisions of the shareholders of the company, looking at, okay, is this change necessary? And maybe doing some surveys to find out what your audience wants. I mean, MTN changed its logo in years, I believe in 2021. And though a lot of people were not satisfied with that change over time, because MTN knew what they were looking at, because they wanted to move on to the 5G terrain. I think they just wanted something different. And over time, their audience became used to it, even though they had a lot of negative calls or negative messages on social media. So you just need to know, okay, is this the time for us to change? What is the reason for changing? Does this still represent our brand? And give it a lot of time for it to come, for the audience to accept it.
All right. Thank you so much for that. That is important for us. We're asking you too many questions today, but of course, this is your area, so we have the chance. You are not here all the time, no?
Yeah.
All right. Now, another curiosity I'm having just now is it had to do with your client. Of course, by your client, I'm trying to sample what is the opinion of the people out there. I wanted to ask you, what do your client complain to you about creating a strong brand?
Many of them say that they don't know where to start from, but Through surveys, through trying to work with them, I realized that many of them just don't see the importance yet. Because, like they say, when you understand something, you make room for it. So many of them say, oh, yes, they want to do a brand, they want to bring their company up forward, but they are not ready to make that sacrifice in terms of either creating the content or even following up with it. So I've had clients that would say, okay, I want you to manage my social media page. And then we create the content, we give it to the client. It takes like 2 or 3 days for them to approve. And we keep having the back and forth here and there. So I would say the major challenge is that yes, they want that change, but many of them still don't understand why they want it. And because of that lack of understanding, they just don't give it that much priority as they should.
What for you are some of the things that a brand or a business should avoid in order to create a strong brand? What are the mistakes that they need to avoid along the way?
Mistakes, inconsistency, and this follows through to what I just mentioned. You have to try to stay consistent. Yeah, I know it's hard, but just try. Avoid conflicting messages or visuals that doesn't matches your brand so that you don't confuse your audience tomorrow. You can't start talking about productivity when you are not even being productive yourself. So you have to avoid inconsistency, you have to avoid the lack of authenticity. That means you have to be genuine, because that genuinity is what will carry you to the end. Because if you try to start building your brand on a lie, you're going to get caught. Because if, for example, you get interviewed by 2 or 3 different people, a time will come where you might even forget that your lie that you said. And by the time people start looking at your story, they realize that this story is not consistent with this other one. So you have to avoid being inauthentic. Then another one is ignoring feedback. That means you have to pay attention to your audience. You have to pay attention to what they are saying and try to adapt it to your brand strategy. Sometimes you might not like critics or criticism, but I mean, there was a time that I was creating content on LinkedIn, and somebody reached out to me and said, oh, I really love how you do your content, but your content are always very long. And because of time, some people might just see and scroll past. And I didn't take that as an offense. I just took it as a way for me to improve. And so I just try as much as possible to put my message straight and direct and avoiding unnecessary information. So being authentic is important. Another one is over promising and under delivering. Don't over promise and don't under deliver. If your brand says that they are going to deliver something, don't try to say that, oh, we'll deliver your items overnight. So because when you put your client expectation onto something, they might just feel like you didn't do well if you don't meet up to what you've promised. Then finally will be ignoring your target audience. That means that you have to tailor your brand to resonate to your audience rather than trying to please everybody. Sometimes not everybody will buy from you. So let's say you have a let's say you have 10,000 people following you, and maybe just 2,000 people are your target audience. Because you feel like your target audience are little, if you try to avoid them or ignore them, over time you might eventually lose the 10,000. So you need to focus on creating content that works with those 2,000 people, and eventually those other 8,000 people, or might not be your audience, might eventually become your audience at the end of the day. So in summary, things to avoid: lack of authenticity, inconsistency, ignoring feedbacks, over promising and under delivering, and finally ignoring your target audience.
Now, people that have listened to this interview to this point, they are interested, they want to connect with you, they want to work with you. How can they reach you? Which is the best way to get to meet you?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best way at Damilola Felicia Badmos on LinkedIn, or just type my name on Google. I've been able to create a very strong online presence that once you just type that name on Google, it just directs you to my LinkedIn profile.
Oh, right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Damilola. Now, we have gotten almost to the end of it. So what would be your final thought here? Maybe an advice, or maybe something that you wanted to say I didn't ask you. You know, I'm not able to know everything. Please go ahead and say that.
It's been a fantastic interview so far. Thank you so much for having me. I think few words I would just like to drop is that we are in the data age and it's not ending anytime soon. Nobody's going to take your place. Yes, AI is here to come, but you have to come out and start positioning yourself, because the more you delay, the more difficult it is for you to penetrate into the market. So don't be afraid. Your personal brand is you. You are your personal brand. And also for corporate organizations trying to see how they can sell themselves better, your employees, the people that you have in your organization, can be amazing cheerleaders to your company. So don't be scared of it. Come out and brand yourself.
Thank you so much for that, Damilola. I appreciate the conversation. Really have been a pleasure here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good time.
And
Bye-bye.
you too.